Hi, I'm Jim.
And I'm David.
And this is the Practical Guitarist Podcast.
The podcast for people who eat, sleep, and breathe guitar. Hi, Jim.
Hi, David.
I know you've got news for us.
I do. So I've joined another band. I'm
so
I'm
excited
part of
for you.
Yes, you should be. So I call it yacht rock, but there are other people that call it boring.
I wouldn't call it boring, but
no.
My turds are afraid to come out.
Well,
So-
we're looking at so the stuff that we'll be doing. I shouldn't say we're looking at. They already had these songs in line, and so I went in. We're doing stuff like the simple 2-chord vamp disco stuff, the boogie oogie oogie and that type of thing. But we're also looking at Parliament. We've got the funk and
Good
that
stuff.
type of thing. Tower Power.
Well, you know what Frank Zappa said about the Tower of Power?
What's that?
It took about an hour.
And there's a couple of orchestration stuff because we're looking at doing the disco version of Beethoven's Fifth, and there was another one. But I mean, you got to do Boogie Shoes.
Yeah,
That
right.
kind of thing.
You're doing a lot of disco tunes.
Yeah.
I have this book that I got for you. I'm just gonna have to show it to you. I don't think I have to mail it to you or anything. Once you see it, you'll understand. This is for how you deal with any future bandmates or like conflicts you might have. It's called Tantrums, and it's how you deal with people who have tantrums.
Oh yeah, my last drummer.
I couldn't help myself.
You know what we called his last blow up? So I went out to the guys did their first duet thing. They decided not to do the trio thing, and so it's funny because we were talking about that, and we said, yeah, when he had his Axl Rose moment. So I'm just like, we called it the Axl Rose
Well,
moment.
it's so funny because it's like, everybody. I was trying to think, like, everybody knows that these big bands have meltdowns, right? And he's the one that everybody brings up, but it's like, I think he was all business. I don't think, because he firing people and everything else.
Right?
I can't really picture him having like a tantrum per se. And of course,
No, me either.
Metallica said they would just stomp his ass. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a whole thing.
I don't know.
Hetfield,
Metallica.
there are some tantrums on record for Hetfield.
Yeah, I would
go watch
say,
some kind of monster.
you want to watch a guy that has tantrums. Hetfield is and fight me on this, but I think that Jason Newsted was the one bassist that got a bad rap. So did you see the speaking of Metallica, let's go right to our guitar stuff. Did you see the thing I posted in the group? It was a terrible cover. Metallica.
Yeah,
well, half of Metallica.
I saw it about a week before you posted it, and you remember that last episode, my rant at the end, where I talked about not wanting to propagate bullshit. So I didn't share it in the group, but that is probably the most abysmal thing I've ever seen.
It was horrendous. I
cried, dude.
Sure.
It was tears of sorrow that somebody would fucking ruin Prince that way.
Oh, it was terrible. I could give a shit. You can keep Prince or take Prince. In my book, it's all right. But I never really.
As Jim plays
Prince
disco tunes all night.
Yeah, and I might wind up playing some Prince and finding a new.
That's what I'm saying.
For
like
it.
you will at some point play some Prince, and you'll be like, oh, now I get it.
Yeah, but honestly, regardless of how I thought of Prince, that was one of the worst cover tunes I have ever seen in my life. Proof that some bands that do fantastic originals, because you've heard their covers, they're terrible.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's not even just that the bands do fantastic originals. It's just that they don't know, like they've got an ego to this point where it's like, we can do no wrong. And even though they had to have known, I mean, if you're Kirk Hammett and you've done all the study with like Joe Satriani or whoever, know music, whether you like to admit it or not, and you knew that was going to be a shit fest.
That was
like
a shit
nobody
show.
was ever going to like that.
No,
that was totally ego stroking and like we can do no wrong kind of crap. That's sycophantism.
And if I was Prince's estate, I'd be calling up those guys and demanding an apology.
Where's my fucking royalties?
Listen, you guys sucked. You need to apologize. Because either they weren't trying hard, either they were trying hard and they sucked, and they need to come out and admit it.
I think they were trying to put their own spin on it, and I think they don't, like, that's not something you could do with that style of music.
No, it doesn't translate to metal.
You know, he's one of the few guys, like, let's talk about that for a minute, because he's one of the few musician artists, whatever you want to call him, the artist formerly known as whatever, where the music that he makes it is definitely genre specific, but it is so specific that I can't imagine remaking his tunes in any other genre. Like, you're not going to hear somebody do a country version of This Is What It's Like When Doves Cry or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, maybe Purple Rain, I could see maybe crossing genres, but a lot of his music, not really. Like, I Would Die For You, it's got to be kind of that New Jack Swing thing which he had his own take on that, which was completely unique to anybody else doing that kind of music at the time, including the time, who he wrote the songs for. So that's another thing. You can tell a Prince tune when somebody else has like received a song that he wrote for them, because it sounds like a Prince song. Even if they're singing it, it doesn't matter who it is. You know immediately that's Prince. Like Manic Monday. Yeah, perfect example.
Yeah, and when he had a crush, I didn't know he had a crush on what's her face, Susan Hoffs. So he had a thing for Susanna Hoffs. She did not have a thing for him, which is weird, because
I have a theory about that, and this is going to make me sound awful, but it was kind of a joke. Like, my dad and I were watching Raven to the Year 2000 or whatever, the live DVD that Prince did for his Millennium show. And my dad was watching it, and he goes, I totally understand Prince now. He's every woman's fantasy because he's a woman. He's basically a man pretending to be a woman. Like,
pretending to be a man. Yeah.
It's
a man
like this
pretending
whole,
to be a woman pretending to be a man.
Because he was basically tapping into the whole, like, fantastic element of being able to relate to, it's a whole thing, being able to relate to the person that you're also, physically attracted to or whatever. But
I agree.
But the fact is, he's like, what, like 5 foot nothing? He wasn't even 5 foot. He's like 4'9".
Well, you saw him next to Zoe Deschanel. He showed up on, what the heck was her TV show there? Zoe Deschanel. Anyway, he showed up on there, and he wasn't much taller than her, and she is 5 foot nothing. So, yeah. Hang on,
I got a personal situation I'm dealing with too during the middle of the show. So if you hear some beeping, I apologize, but it is actually important. So, we didn't do our housekeeping this episode.
So hit it.
I'm going to hit it now. Are you a regular listener? Why not? Subscribe to Practical Guitars using your chosen podcast app and take the time to put in a review at a service where you found our podcast, like iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, or Google Play. Get involved. Find our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Practical Guitarist. You can also find us on Twitter as @PracticGuitarist. If you're interested in supporting the show, we've launched a Threadless store at practicalguitaristpodcast.threadless.com. And if you'd like to donate money to the show, there's always Patreon. Our Patreon is available at patreon.com/practicalguitarist. Hoping to have some exclusive content up there soon. And if you'd like to reach out to us directly, you can always do so at questions@practicalguitarist.com. A couple of things. This is not part of the normal housekeeping. I just want to give a shout out to all the guys in the group. Tell them you guys are all doing a wonderful job and you guys give us a really positive community. If you're listening to the show and you're not a member of the group and you have a Facebook account, I highly recommend it. It's very active and engaged. And we all have a good laugh in there occasionally. So,
yeah. We don't take ourselves too seriously.
No, none of us do, really. I mean, if you've seen a picture of me, you know why I don't take myself too seriously.
Yeah, yeah, same here. That's for sure. So no new gear this week. No new gear last week. I don't think I had new gear the week before. I've been no gearless for a little while.
I got some furniture, guitar related furniture.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I got a stool. Yep, guitar stool to play guitar on.
Yep.
You want me to go into detail? Because I could say more.
Yeah.
All right, so I ordered a stool. If you play like an hour or two or whatever a week and you don't really notice it, Having a stool is way better for playing guitar because of the way that it positions the guitar. And of course, if you have the right rung height, like your leg gets to almost 90 degrees, it keeps the guitar from shifting against your body if you play on a leg. I tend to play more classical style, or like you would when you stand up, where the guitar is slung in front of me. When I got my stool, I was hoping to be able to play it on my leg, and this is going to sound really stupid, but here's the reason why. I hate when I pick up a guitar and it's got no strap on it, and I have to look for the strap. It's just like, here's another 10 to 15 seconds of me going, fuck, like, why can't I just pick it up and play it? So, I get this one thinking, oh yeah, I bought the nice rock and sock because I got a little bit of extra money running around right now because I'm not buying any other gear. And I bought the nice rock and sock tower, which is supposed to be a drum throne. Believe me, I've never met a guy that can sit on a 29-inch bar stool and play the drums. But nevertheless, it's supposed to be a drum throne. And
really?
Yeah.
Jeez, crow. That's awfully that would be a really tall person and a really tall set of drums.
29 inches, man. Like it's tall. So I get this thing and I take it out of the box, which by the way, they don't ship it and like you have to put it together. It's shipped assembled. So it comes out of this giant box, which I had to somehow haul home from work in the back of my car, which was full. And I set it up and I start watching a movie and I get my guitar and like start practicing and I realize the top rung is too high for me to get my leg at 90 degrees. But once I realized how easy it was to transition from sitting like normally on it to standing and having the guitar in the exact same position as I would be if I were standing and playing, I was like, no, this is better anyway, because it puts the guitar in a more natural position for what I would be doing for performing. And also, I'm a bigger guy. It's hard for me to stand for like 2 hours when I'm rehearsing or whatever, practicing at the house. So it's nice to have a stool to be able to just rest on like every 3 songs. Like I'll sit down for one or something. But nevertheless, it's cool. It's a cool seat. Highly recommend the Rock and Sock products if you guys have never used them. I've been able to sit on it for a 3-hour movie without any pain whatsoever in my back. And it promotes proper posture as well. So I don't even feel like I'm slouching or anything. It makes me sit up straight and all that good stuff. The more you do it, the easier it becomes to sit for longer periods of time too. But yeah, highly recommend. It's a good purchase, and I'm glad I bought it. I got it from Sweetwater, so if you guys are interested, I can throw that up in the group so you guys can see the product. Because I don't know that it necessarily shows up for the search for guitar stool.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, so I have a guitar stool that I just kind of lucked into when I was in a Guitar Center probably about 15 years ago. It was on sale. Guitar Center just moved into the Albany area. I think it was 2001, 2002 maybe. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. I bought it. I didn't think about, height, but I lucked out because it was just right where I could sit on it and stand. I don't tend to sit and play. I just can't sit and play. So when I'm playing, I stand. But if I've got a break between songs or whatever, I don't mind sitting.
Oh, I'm not taking it for a live gig. This is for home use only.
That's what I mean.
You can't keep me you couldn't get me to sit down at a live gig. Like, it's just not going to happen.
But even like today when I was doing the audition and then the rehearsal, I sat only between tunes and I stood up during every song.
It's funny. So like I have a problem. It's a pinched nerve. I know what it is. I've never had it dealt with. I could probably go to a chiropractor and get it adjusted. And I get one of my legs actually goes kind of numb, and occasionally I get like a burning sensation in it. It's in the upper thigh portion, and I never get that when I'm playing out because your body just like says, "Nope, you got too much adrenaline. This ain't gonna happen right now." So you stand there for 2 hours, as long as you're playing. Just don't deviate, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Playing live, natural painkiller. Yeah, you're all talking about medical marijuana. The hell with medical marijuana? I got medical music. Anyway, that was really lame. I'm sorry, everybody.
Yeah, well, you got to do what you got to do.
That's right.
So, how many people? How many people have you unfriended this week on Facebook?
Why is that?
I did I unfriended some people. I
mean, there's a couple I want to right now.
Yeah.
I've been into it with one person several times. Over ridiculous stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think I'm just getting irritated. I got some personal stuff going on that's coming to a head, and there's some other things going on. So I think I'm just amped up a little bit. So I'm trying not to delete people off my friends list if I can avoid it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I went through and I did the old has this person,
Said
interacted with
you
me
in like the last 2 years?
In the last, X years. Even family members gone. If they're not reacting, I just don't care.
I just want to
guitar wise,
make sure I want to keep the podcast.
So one of the things that of course, I want to, and of course you.
Oh yeah, fuck that.
Everybody that's musical, I keep them on there anyway. I don't care.
That son of a bitch.
But I'll tell you some sneaky stuff has been happening. You saw that one I sent you.
Oh yeah,
I certainly won't.
What was that?
I know, it was like Facebook goes, you might like this person. No, actually, that person sent me a friend request. I did not accept it, obviously, but it was like, what? I mean,
yeah. And you get like the craziest, creepiest stuff because you're in a naval town,
right?
So it's like, I don't know. It's like that scene in Full Metal Jacket with the hooker. I mean, it's that exactly. Bad. Jim's getting random Facebook messages akin to that scene from that movie. And if you don't know that scene, you should go check it out because there's a world famous line that I will not repeat here that you should know.
Yeah. Yes, and I'm not going to say it here, but it's one of those things where I was like, you've got to be kidding me. So, we'll come back to Facebook because I think that's important. Matter of fact, why don't we talk about it now? So for Facebook, what do you use Facebook for? Most people use it for they're keeping up with friends and family and stuff.
Social media,
I use it for business. Social
media is so important for business, and it is doubly important for music. And I don't think this is a planned topic, but I think it's really important that we have this conversation while it's here. We've been using social media to promote the podcast, and actually, because my last band predates social media, which now I'm dating myself, my last successful band, we didn't have this as a tool at our disposal. So had we had social media to keep in touch with everybody, I think we had MySpace at the very end. It would have been a very valuable tool. And even now I see myself, I'm promoting my personal music through social media more than anything else, because social media is the easiest way to indebt people. And I know it sounds terrible, but if you're a friend of a friend and you see this guy's music and you're like, oh yeah, I know him, I met him at a party or whatever, you're more obligated to listen to that music than just some random ass person that you found on Bandcamp or whatever.
Exactly. Matter of fact, I don't even go to these things, these band camps, or what is the other one?
They're just there to host your music anyway. I mean, that's the only reason why any of those services are popular. I use SoundCloud, but I'm getting away from that now too because I can use DistroKid. For $20 a year, I can post my music on iTunes. I mean,
you can post it everywhere.
Well, why not? Then anybody who has Apple Music, I can say, just go download my song on Apple Music. It's fine.
Yeah.
It makes a hell of a lot more sense to me. That also means that I have to put together album art for singles and all that stuff, but it's not horrendous. In fact, I have a song out there right now. It's not one of my proudest songs, but if there's anybody listening, you can look up David Hill on Apple Music and you will find my song called Undisclosed. So
really? Oh yeah.
Yeah, I have one song out there.
I have nothing out there.
But Black Death Doctors, my artist collaborative project is out there too. So we have one song called Odd for You that's out there.
Oh really?
Yep. Highly recommend. Go download it or go stream it so you can actually give me some money. Or
there you go.
Or just join our Patreon. That works too.
I would not. So I'm not a streamer. Like you were talking about. before about the streaming things. I don't consider streams purchases,
Right.
because you're not paying money for it.
Yeah, well, it's not a purchase, but I mean, if you stream a piece of music, I get a royalty. It's not much. It's like a third of a cent or something. But it's if you're just going to play
that much,
if you're gonna, it's like a third of a cent. If you're playing it, then fine. Like, I don't care if you give me a penny.
Well, I get it. Okay, so
I just don't want to see it get counted as this is an album sale. It's not the same thing at all.
It's not. All right. So most people, I don't know. I'm not one of these people, but most people turn on the radio and they just listen to radio. Whatever comes on.
Sure. And that does pay the original artist actually more than a stream. Quite a bit more, in fact.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where you have to have wide channel distribution in order for that to work. So I think streaming is the alternative for the independent artist.
Yeah.
Granted, it's still the big major artists that are still making all the money.
Yes.
Go look at the roster over at Tidal. That's basically the people who are streaming for cash.
Right.
Even though, I mean, you look at some of these artists now and they'll tell you, like, my music's available for streaming just because we're going to make money on it live, and that's the only intention we have.
Right.
Radiohead, hell, I think it was in the mid 2000s when they finally said, "Nah, we're just going to release this album for free through our website. Fuck it."
Didn't they say pay whatever you want?
I think they did a record like that too, where they were like, "Just pay whatever you want."
Pay whatever you want.
Yep. Yeah. And I'm sure nobody paid shit. And I'm sure they were aware that was going to happen.
Yeah.
It's funny because it's this model that we're entering into, and I think it is mostly a social media driven model, is essentially the same as what we had in the Middle Ages, where if you were, in Middle Ages and Renaissance, if you were Bach and you were a composer, you worked for the church, most likely. And that was paying you, your living wage. And if you needed extra money, you were doing requiems for, rich people who were paying you as a patron to take care of them, their musical need for some event.
Yep.
And some of the best music came out of those kinds of situations. But the reason why that's so interesting is because we're going back to a patronage system. Patreon was developed by somebody involved in the musician community. I don't know if you knew that or not. It's a friend of Jude Gold's, I believe.
Really?
Cooked up Patreon.
Well, it harkens back to the days when patronage was how writers, playwrights, musicians, people of the arts, artists, obviously, painters, so on and so forth, would get. That's how they lived. Mm-hmm. They couldn't make a living selling their stuff.
I think
selling their wares.
We're in this weird middle ground between patronage and the old system. And I was having a conversation with somebody the other day. We were talking about how there was basically three major labels left. I think it was Stephen Conradi. There was 3 major labels left, and we were talking about how eventually those are going to collapse, and it's not even going to be that long. They weren't hedging their bets in the 90s or in the late 90s, early 2000s to try and prevent what's happening right now from happening. So we figure the 3 major labels will probably consolidate down to one. They'll buy each other. And then what will end up happening is that it will be them versus, streaming services. And we're almost already there. But at that point, it almost becomes a free-for-all for who's going to get promoted because, honestly, there's no one to sit there and pay the Clear Channel fees to get their music on the radio, which is legal payola. And so, it's like the radio dies at that point because, you're going to promote the 6 artists that are signed to X label that's left? It just doesn't make any sense anymore. So I think we're headed towards a way more independent music thing than we ever have been. And also, I think we've talked about EDM and stuff, and probably covered this in the previous episode, but I think we're on the verge of EDM dying and actual music coming back. I think we're right on the cusp of this happening. and you're starting to see like this kind of windfall change. And I'm gonna point out the pop guy. Who's the dude, the British guy that ripped off Marvin Gaye's tune?
Oh yeah, Ed Sheeran.
Okay, so Ed Sheeran actually plays an instrument, right? Which is totally counterintuitive to the other pop people we've seen in the last decade.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we can argue like Lady Gaga plays piano, but that's not like her main shtick. Like, you're not going to see Ed Sheeran on stage without a guitar. It's just not going to happen. So I think he's like the start of the pop side of it, but I think we're also seeing bands like Greta Van Fleet, and I got just ripped a new one in a group the other day because I said Greta Van Fleet. The reason we're talking about them is because they're hitting it right now, and Apple's promoting them. They were on the front page of iTunes the other day. I'm like, what the hell? I hadn't even heard of these guys until like right before we talked about them on the podcast the first time, and now they're everywhere. Yeah. It's just nuts. I haven't seen a band do that in a long time. So for that to be the case, I'm beginning to wonder if like we're not about to have some big resurgency, or at least that the final three major labels are starting to realize like we have to give these people something authentic, because we can't compete with independent labels who are doing that for the diehards. So I don't know. That's my 2 cents. I think we're about to see not the death of EDM, but it's going to morph. It's going to change, and I think we're going to see a lot more like real instruments and real real timing. You're not going to have metronomes and clicks on everything, and it's going to be a real weird world, because I think a lot of musicians today, yes, there are still great musicians. There's your Pete Thorns and people like that are still out there that can just, walk into a studio and record gold. But I think you're going to see a lot of people who grew up bedroom playing, thinking that they're going to be able to do that stuff, that are going to have to learn really quickly, like how to play with a band again, or with a band period, if they never learned it, because it's just it's going to be a whole other world. I mean, let's face it, a metronome is not a drummer.
Right.
So.
Right. Well, so there's so I was a teen when disco became something that all of a sudden everybody was burning the records around 1980, 81.
Kiss versus disco, all that stuff, right?
Yep. And there was this, this whole backlash. And so people went from, it was a similar type of thing, and I can see happening again, where music is going to have to rebound.
Yeah, and that's weird, because like bands like Twisted Sister and stuff like that, they did this whole like disco sucks, we're gonna kill disco kind of thing, and they were straight up burning effigies of people and stuff on stage at Twisted Sister shows. Right. And I don't think we have the hate of EDM coming out in this new generation of musicians. I think it's almost like, yeah, that's cool too, but we can do it this way, and this has groove or what. Like there's general reasons why you might want to approach it this way, and it's almost like an acknowledgement that we can do both if we have to, and incorporate that. Actually, Dream Theater has been doing both for a really long time. And you listen to their records, and it's very much to a click, but every instrument on there is a real instrument in most cases. Occasionally they use a drum machine or whatever, but
I remember in the 80s that it might have been the early 90s. You couldn't go to a club without hearing mixes. Everything was a mix. And suddenly people were slowing down, speeding up songs to match them to a click so that they could make them mash, and they could play 12 songs in a row without having to speak to the audience and do anything. And this wasn't bands. This was DJs.
Yeah.
And DJs, no offense to anybody who loves to be a good DJ, they're great for weddings.
A DJ is not live music.
It's not live music. And I don't care what you say. Oh, I'm such a great DJ and I could make these mixes and shut up.
Look,
you're just cutting pasting songs and
there are some
tempos.
people that can play turntables like a drum set.
That's different.
That's different. Then that's not what we're talking about here.
Right. That is very different. I'm not talking about the folks that they didn't call them DJs. What did they call them when they had somebody like that in the band? But anyway, The guys that could, that's a different type. They know where to find the note, and they're doing things melodically and rhythmically.
Yeah, that's a thing that I don't want to ever fucking have to learn how to do because it's incredibly precise and difficult.
And people who think that that's easy.
Oh yeah, go play around the Guitar Center with turntables for 10 minutes. You'll see how hard that actually is.
Right. Well, they're not sitting there going, oh, this one's at 120 BPM, this one's at 118 BPM. Let's make the 120, 118. And here's the one here. Boom, boom, boom. Okay.
Line it up.
Drop that one.
I got one headphone on one song and one headphone on the other, so I can, tell when they're lined up.
Cue it. Yep.
It's a whole thing.
Yeah, I don't need that.
And you know what kills me is they have all this equipment that was developed like specifically with DJs in mind. The Chaos Pad, for example, was built basically for DJs. A lot of the modern drum machines, basically anything past the Alesis one that everybody used in the 80s, is I think it's a TR 80 something or whatever, TR 800, well, whatever. The black one with the blue labeling from Alesis, they still sell them.
Right.
When that thing is like the last professional drum machine you see everywhere. And now, like the Zoom units, they've all got RCA outputs because it's got to plug into the DJ gear. And listen, I took recording science when I was in college. I took 2 years of it, and I don't recall ever seeing an RCA jack in the studio. Like we just didn't. And if we had them, it was on like a CD deck or something, and we never used the RCA plugs. Never. So. It's one of those things where if it has an RCA jack, chances are that's for DJs.
Exactly.
Phono plug for DJs.
Well, so the old mixing boards had RCAs, but it was tape out.
Yeah. Well, they still do.
Tape out.
They still do.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
But they were always meant for consumer grade gear to plug in. That was kind of the deal.
For right.
Right.
And it was so you could put your phone, and you had the old phones, the little 1/8" jack, and you put them in RCA, so you had 1/8" to RCA or 0.35 millimeter, whatever it is.
If you guys want to hear some music that plays around with the idea of like taking the urban like turntable approach with guitar, Vernon Reid did a couple of records, and they're kind of hard to find. You can probably get them on Amazon. So he did Mask, and I don't think Mask, because that was like a project. I think that had turntables in it, but he was really experimenting with that stuff, and there's some good stuff out there, very innovative and interesting. I don't necessarily know that it would be like the music for everybody, but if you're into avant-garde stuff and you're like, hey, I wonder what that would sound like, go check those records out. Vernon Reid has like a catalog of great musicians of every genre that he can collaborate with when needed. So
right.
Anyway,
right. And again, I think we're going to see not exactly, just like what I was getting to, the point was just like disco, it didn't actually die. I mean, a lot of people hated it, but look what came from it, though. We got thrash metal from it. We got Leonard Skinner from it. We got
the
whole
reactionary to it was like
right.
The polarization aspect of it, and what it made those people do makes it worthwhile in a way. I also still think that there are some redemptive disco songs. And that's in retrospect, like looking back, even though the Bee Gees weren't technically disco and they didn't really fancy themselves that way, Bee Gees music is great. I mean, they were the Australian Beatles, and they were better at it than the Beatles, in my opinion. So
we were talking about that tonight because we were talking about a couple Bee Gees tunes to cover. And anybody that thinks that a Bee Gees tune is easy should try to play a Bee Gees tune.
What you got to understand is those guys were like playing together at like 8 years old, in professional gigs. And when their first record came out, they'd been together for like 10 years at that point.
Yeah, and they were teens.
Yeah,
they were teens, and they had been together for 10 years. That's how young they were.
And that was in the late '60s. I think their first record came out.
1964.
So put that in perspective. They didn't have like the big smash, like amazing success until like 1982 when like Saturday Night Fever came out or whatever.
Well, that was 77.
Was it 77? Right? I'm thinking of the second one. I'm thinking of the second one, the awful movie.
Oh, yeah, that was awful. Staying Alive.
Staying Alive. What were they even thinking?
But, that was Robert Stigwood and their horrible contract. They just wanted to get out of the Stigwood organization. He had Eric Clapton too, Stigwood.
Yeah.
If you had any of the mid '70s Eric Clapton stuff, he was on the RSO label. But the thing about them was because they had an awesome sense of harmony. The way that Barry played, because he was used to, his father was a big band musician.
Yeah.
And so he was used to where chords really, there were no rules. You had a lot of comping, right? And you had a lot of chord changes that were consistent.
Yeah.
And so he didn't know how to play or tune a guitar. So he thought you were just strummed. So he tuned to open D and went from there.
Yeah.
And so when you take a guy like that, you know what I mean?
Well, and the talent in that band is not necessarily the musicianship. They were solid musicians, like they had good rhythm and stuff, but the talent was in the vocals.
Oh yeah, and the songwriting.
Their ability to put together a song. That's another thing. I hear a lot of people touting like, "Oh, so and so is an excellent songwriting band." What determines that?
Yep.
Like to me, excellent songwriter is you have decent lyrics or you have good lyrics, but you have to have great composition regardless. This is music, people. Composition is important. It's more important than any other piece of a song. Right. I know people act like, and this is where you can send me your hate mail, questions@practicalguitarist.com. People act like that the lyrics are more important than the music to the song. And I don't think one can ever be more important than the other. I think they have to be balanced. So if you have shit music though, and you have crap lyrics, sometimes you can get away with it.
Right. And
I mean, we've seen that in the last 20 years. What the hell, that Drowning Pool song that was so big, Let the Bodies Hit the Floor.
Oh.
I mean, there's like 10 lyrics in the whole song, and that song went like multi-platinum. People were excited about that shit.
Ace of Base for me, that was an example of that. Ace of Base, remember?
Yeah.
Their big hit. I just couldn't understand how anybody liked that. And I was like, you take a song like Marcy's Playground, that was awesome.
Sure. To bring this back home. So we're talking about social media and its impact on this. Like social media has become, I would say, the defining technology of probably the last 10 years. And in a sense, what I mean by that is, okay, so we had the digital age that really began in the 90s and extended itself into the mid 2000s. So I would say we about like 2005 when the first iPhone came out, which would have been in 2007, I want to say, because we've had 10 years of the iPhone in 2017. I would say that's like when everything changed, and that's when social media took dominance. And so the social media technology, yes, it's built on the digital age, but the whole idea is like it's the first application that pretty much everybody that has access to the internet is involved in. You could say you're not involved in it, but if you've ever put a comment at the bottom of a news article, or if you like, that's social media right there in a nutshell. If you've ever received even an email that says, "Hey, this article is something you might want to read," like that's social media. That's the same thing. And we are finally like reaping both the rewards and the awful things about social media. So you're talking about dropping people off your Facebook account. I mean, yeah, obviously we see people for what they are. It has done some interesting things politically, regardless of what side of the aisle or what side of the political spectrum you hail from. I've watched myself in the last 5 to 6 years, I've watched people gradually move away from center positions to the far rights and left to the point where they're like shooting each other, verbally and insulting each other to the point where it's like, dude, if you guys saw each other in person, you probably wouldn't even know what your political affiliation was. Like it just would, but because we bear our hearts on our sleeve here, it's now become this big thing. I would say from the same token, it has created a musical culture that is also kind of doing some of these oppositional things as well as marrying things together. You can definitely see how much more eclectic people's tastes in music are. That guy with the mohawk in the 80s, you thought he was all about like the hardcore punk thrash scene, all of a sudden, like you realize, oh no, he likes Elton John too. Like, because we it's there for the world to see. You don't hide anything. good and bad. I mean, that's
Right.
obvious. You can't have your guilty pleasure if it's, out there in the public for everybody to see. So social media, as far as a tool, I mean, I'm even seeing. So when I went to GearFest, they have all these seminars that they teach people various things like recording and how to promote yourself, etc. One of the seminars was on social media and using social media as a tool to promote yourself.
Yeah, one of the biggest mistakes people make when they do in social media promoting is like, all right, so I have a lot, not bragging, a lot of professional musicians as Facebook friends.
Yeah.
Not friends. I don't know them personally.
If you haven't tried to friend some of these people, try it because it works.
Right. Yeah. So the thing I don't do, and that's why I don't get kicked out of their groups or their, off their pages, is I don't fanboy and I don't throw them into groups, oh, well, I'll throw you into the practical guitar.
We could sure invite Jude Gold over to,
Yeah. But why would I do that? Then
he doesn't want to be here. Like,
and then he's going to tell people, yeah, you don't want to friend that guy. So your name, we think that the musician community is huge, and it's
actually
not.
a lot smaller. For the
very small.
For the practicing musician, it's a lot smaller.
Right.
There's a lot of guys just playing in their bedrooms, but for the guys that are actually playing out live, like if you go, so this is an experiment you could try. You go to the 3 open mics in your week, and I bet you will find that like the 3 open mics within like 10 miles of your house or whatever, you'll find at least a third of the guys go to the other open mics.
I can tell you this. So the band that I auditioned for and accepted the position for tonight, I auditioned for them a year ago. They asked me to join them a year ago, and I decided to go with the band I was in. When I went back there tonight, they said, "You've been here before, haven't you?" I said, "Oh yeah, I've been here before." I said, "I didn't know I was in the same place till I went to the address." And I said, "I hope you don't hold that against me." He goes, "Let me just ask you this: if we like you, are you gonna be a part of it?" I said, "Yeah." So there was a possibility that, I mean, obviously they didn't hold a grudge and I didn't burn a bridge,
which is cool.
But it's because I left, because I left it amicably. I just said, you know what? I tried out for a couple of bands. I went with this one, but I'm about to do the same thing. I'm about to tell another band, hey, you know what? I made a decision. I'm sticking to it. The big thing is that, no matter what you do locally, you'd be surprised at how big that can start to reverberate out. Mm-hmm. And you really want to, when you're focusing on your Facebook page, my Facebook page, you don't find a bunch of political threads. You're not going to see. Yeah. You're not going to see me, even though I do see professional musicians do it. I see them clashing with each other. Well, they're already up here. They're at the Clash of the Titans. Yeah. I'm not up there yet. So the thing that I do is, I keep my political affiliations to myself. And for those who want to know who I voted for, I didn't vote for anybody. I don't vote. So there. My vote doesn't count. I don't care. Don't try to, don't think that you're going to try to convince me to do it. I just don't care. I'm not going to choose between a juice and a turd. It's just not going to happen. So we always have two choices, and they're always a douche and a turd. Let somebody else decide which one that's going to be in place, douche or turd. Not for me. Anyway, so I don't put up political affiliation. I don't put up, even though I go to church on Sundays, I don't put up my religious affiliations. I don't. So in other words, what I post most of the time is either, my daughter unfortunately tags me and stuff about cats and stuff, even though I can't stand cats. And
I remember that.
Yeah, it's just, I don't care how much you take care of them. They always smelly.
No,
believe me, even
smell.
My dog, my dog is.
My cats do not smell.
But if I get another animal, it'll be a fish. And the only time he'll smell is when he's dead.
Oh, shit.
But anyway, the thing is that if you're going to be on Facebook, if you want to have that political affiliation thing and everything, put that in another Facebook page. Make your business page business. It's about you networking with people locally. if you want a gig or you want to get gigs, don't call out a club. Don't call out fellow musicians.
Don't. If you're going to do it, keep it anonymous. Say, I was doing this with somebody. And make sure you don't post it like the next day. Because then that person knows immediately like who you're talking about.
Or the club does. Exactly. Yeah. Now, recently I saw this. So I've got some friends in New York that gig regularly, and they get some very high profile gigs. And without throwing names out, without throwing the stuff out, the guy that a good friend of mine posted about a club, and they called him out. They called him straight out. Not only called him out, they got on the news and called him out.
Yeah.
Because they played a very big festival. I'm not gonna throw out names or stuff, but played a very big, and then they didn't get paid. Yeah. And they were like, ooh, and they got legal papers and everything. They had contract and everything. They said, you've got to pay us. And they said, no, we're not going to pay you. We decided we didn't like your stuff. Yeah, well, you had X thousand people here. You're going to kind of pay. So anyway, long story short, they didn't get paid. And that's another whole topic on its own, is how do you protect yourself? When you're a musician and you're gigging, protecting yourself, knowing how to do contracts, knowing how to do riders. And here's the thing about a rider, those of you who have never had one. You pay for that stuff.
Yep.
If you want to go in and say, I want green M&Ms and purple gumdrops, you're going to pay for somebody to go out and sort all the M&Ms and the purple gumdrops. You're not getting that for free from the club unless you put that in the rider that the club is to do that. Most riders are so that you have water available to you. You're still going to pay for that. And you have a nice, comfortable place. Some riders, we would have a place to take a shower, private area, so that when we go on break, we could go into that area. We didn't have to be out there yelling at the crowd, because everybody wants to come up to you and go, hey, do you play blah, 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 over top of the speakers, and you're supposed to yell at them. And then they get mad because you don't want to spend 10 minutes yelling back and forth at them.
That's actually the whole reason that backstage exists.
Yeah.
Is because, you could imagine what that situation would be like if the guys had to get off the stage and walk around down the front and stuff. It'd just be
yeah. It's every single person in the place wants to tell you what songs you should be playing. Everybody knows what your set list should look like. I'll tell you that. Mm-hmm. It's a hard line. So, geez, we're running up towards the end of time.
Yeah, we're at 47 minutes.
So one of the things I wanted to go over is, those of you who might wonder, so when I go to audition for a band, I have to learn several songs. Like, I had a dozen songs for each of the two bands that I was auditioning for. I had a dozen songs, so 24 songs. I had to learn them in 8 days, and plus the solo stuff I'm doing. So let's just say that I learned about 45 songs last 8 days. And you wonder, how do you do that?
So not just how do you do it, how do you remember them?
Like a lot of people are just like, oh yeah, he's got cheat sheets, or I don't.
No, they don't have. When you go to an audition, if you pull out a piece of sheet music, in most cases, they're gonna look at you and go, "The hell do you think this is?"
Yeah, they offered. I think it was a trick question. They offered. They said, "Hey, we got some charts right here." I said, "That's all right. Just give me the key. If you bring it down or bring it up, just give me the key. I'll do it in your key." And it's impressive to the people that you're auditioning for, because you don't need those cheat sheets. Now, there are times when you should use them. If you're a pit musician.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I was saying. Like, in most situations, like you and I would be auditioning for, you're not going to necessarily need sheet music. Like, you're going to be expected to kind of know off the sheet, meaning like not without using it. But if you're going to try out for a musical or something, that's perfectly acceptable for you to have the music.
Yeah, it actually goes the opposite. It's like the old joke: how do you get the guitar player to stop playing tandem sheet music? How do you get the keyboard player to stop playing, take away their sheet music? It's just like that. So you should learn how to read, at least learn how to read structures.
And my idea of sheet music in a lot of cases is literally just either the melody line or just the chords written in over the bars, so I know exactly like when I should change. And
that's I mean, how many of us have used that? That's probably
it's a lead sheet,
lead sheet, a cheat sheet. You can call it whatever you want. What's the fake book?
Yeah,
I have 4 fake books.
Super
that
useful.
I have. There's very useful. So if you wonder how I sat down and learned Jungle Love by Steve Miller in an hour, I just sat down and learned it. So I think that the biggest thing is knowing how to play. If you can find your roots and you know your intervals, you can play any song, because once you can find the root of the song, the key, then you can go and you can play by running around with the intervals. You're using your intervals to get to place and place. Now, sometimes you might miss a 13th, or you might, oh geez, that was an add 9. I boo-booed. I didn't add 9. But you should know your majors, minors, sevenths. Those are the 3 things you should have in your pocket, and your augmenteds and your susses. At least know how to play an A sus, a D sus, and an E sus. Those are the 3 you should have in your pocket.
Actually, sus barcodes are just so damn easy anyway. You should just know.
Yeah. And be willing to, be ready if you've got a guitar. I wouldn't recommend auditioning with a locking trem unless you're in a heavy, hair metal band.
Yeah, I mean, honestly,
you're going to want to be able to drop D once in a while.
Honestly, unless you know the songs are going to require a trem bar, I would rather just take a hardtail anyway.
Yep.
Because it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to have it, because it's just going to cause you tuning problems. It's going to make you sound like shit. So
that's what I did tonight. Where is it? Right there.
The SG.
Yeah, I took the SG, and I'll tell you, and I was playing disco with it.
Good.
It sounded great. It sounded fantastic. Of course, the blue guitar amp one, the
clean channel.
Oh heck yeah! I was using the clean channel, the blue guitar amp one, pretty much. Clean channel of the blue guitar, bridge pickup, rolled a little bit off the high end on the tone knob, and the volume right around 7.5.
Yeah,
that's pretty much where I sat most of the time.
Well, trying to think if there are any other audition tips that maybe you missed.
Well, be prompt. Bring everything you need.
Be professional, and that will encompass all of those things. Be professional. Make sure that you have your strings. Make sure you have the proper instrument. You have all your amplification you need. Even I've gone so far as to bring backup stuff in the car and just not bring it in case something happens. It never hurts to ask questions beforehand. Like, how informal is this? Don't show up with beer in hand to a rehearsal or something like that that you're going to be auditioning at. Jim, I'm just saying it because I've had it happen and I've seen people do stuff like that before.
Or with weed.
Yeah. Hey guys, you guys want to smoke a doob before you play this song? Listen, that's not professional.
No. And here's the thing. Even if you're going there and these guys drink or they smoke weed, unless they tell you to bring it, like BYOB or
it's not.
First of all, if you're going to an audition and you're going there to drink beer, it's not to get a paid gig.
I was just going to say the same thing. Like that's look, it's just like in a job interview, we dress for success. Right. If that's their like image or whatever.
Yep.
Very rare. Very rarely does that end up with any sort of success. Yep. And I think the other thing to understand is that you don't audition for, like, I'm going to be a member of this band that is writing their own original tunes, trying to get a big record. Like, you don't audition for that. You meet the guys, you hang out with them. Like, you might play a little bit, you might jam a couple times, and they're like, hey, you know what? We need a guitar player. Like, why don't you come join us? And like, that's how that goes. When you audition, when it is a formal audition, they're like, oh, we'd like you to come by and try out. That's a whole other thing. You're an employee as far as you're concerned. That's how you should be viewing that relationship. Yep. And so that's when you go in and you say, all right, I'm going to come in with my nice clothes on, and I'm going to have the right guitar, the right case, Right? The whole thing, and show them how professional I am and how I'm going to carry myself going to a gig.
Absolutely.
That's basically it.
And that's the big thing, because remember, when if you want to be in a successful band, the band that goes, yeah, we're going to play the songs we like. Don't care what other people think. That doesn't get you hired. It just doesn't, because the truth of the matter is that it is still that part is the business relationship between the band and the club owners. Now there are the club owners. It's like, hey, it's a slow day. We're not really paying you. You want to come in. That's a different thing. Those are different relationships. But if you're going to come in and you expect to get money, I hear it all the time. I'm like, yeah, these guys don't know good music. Well, if there's a bunch of people there and they're drinking, they're having a good time, whooping it up.
Yeah, I remember.
It doesn't matter if you've heard Mustang Sally 4 freaking times that night. Honestly.
The truth is, in picking set list material and all that kind of thing, you have to be aware of the club's needs more than your own. And sometimes you can be fortunate enough where the music that you like is something that will be marketable in your area. But I would bet more often than not, you're going to have a couple songs in that set that you have to play you don't like. It's just going to have to be that way. So, I mean, I sent Jim a set list the other night and it was all over the place. But what we didn't talk about in the conversation was that some of those songs are picked because that's kind of expected around here now.
Yeah.
We have a very strange musical climate here in Chicago. It's quite odd, but
go to the clubs you want to play in, listen to the music and see the bands that are there. And then that's where it's just like any other job. You're going to dress for the job you want. You want to put yourself, fake it till you make it, however you want to call it. You want to put yourself into a position where that is what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we're hitting 56 minutes. It is a late Monday night for the launch of this episode. So I think we should call it, Jim.
I think we should.
All right.
But here's the thing I want to talk about before we go.
Okay.
You need to tell me about ska music.
No, we don't. No, we don't.
And
so I said, Jim, no, it's not an inside joke. Listen, I can state my opinion here. It's fine. Sure. There are very few bands in the ska genre that I like.
No doubt.
No, that's not ska. They may think they are. But here's my problem, and we're not going to go into who the specific artists are. And really, it's usually not a whole artist. It might be like a specific song or a specific record. Because I don't generally like all of their output. So my thing is, I like reggae. I like authentic reggae. So I used to get these like mix CDs that were like world music, and it would be like reggae, and it'd be all these different artists on them. And that's what I mean by authentic reggae, not just the shit that we got imported to the United States and got played on the radio. I
not
like
that Bob Marley didn't kick ass, because he did. But.
Yeah, no, and actually he is authentic reggae. But the thing is, there's so many other artists around surrounding that genre. Right. So fine, all right. I like reggae. You'd think you'd throw punk music into the mix, like I'm gonna like that too. I have super specific tastes when it comes to punk music. I don't really like anything like post Ramones, really. I don't like much pre Ramones even.
So you're not like what's the name of the band that it was huge? Everybody, Dookie was their big album.
Green Day? No, hell no.
Green Day.
Hell no. So I had some of the records when I was a kid. The two records I liked the most were the ones that sounded like the Sex Pistols, which was the earliest ones. Like they were like a mix of the Sex Pistols and Ramones. And then like I think it was when Dookie came out that like they just got shitty. Like I had no interest in listening to them anymore. So I wore both those records out. I never replaced them. I actually had them on CD and I wore them out. So and I was young. I was like 10 or 11 years old at that point. What's up?
What about the Dead Kennedys?
So that's a band that's like I'm kind of on the fence about. I like the Misfits, like the early Misfits, not the shit with Jerry Only. When Glenn Danzig left, like the Misfits died for me. I like Henry Rollins band. I like Black Flag, obviously. I like Sex Pistols, like some of their stuff. I don't like The Clash. That shit does nothing for me.
See, you would hate my collection of punk because it would begin with The Clash.
Yeah. Sorry, but you're not punk if you do a song called, like Rock the Casbah or whatever. Like, that's not a punk song. I'm sorry. That's not a punk song. Like, what the fuck?
The Ramones. I liked Rock and Roll High School.
No, I like the Ramones. So I like a lot of the Ramones output, actually. But that's like the end of punk for me because then it became pop music at that point. So you go and you had like Rancid and MXPX and Green Day and all these bands in the 90s and Offspring is another one.
If you think about it, I love the Offspring.
Offspring actually don't mind so much.
Give it to me, baby.
I don't mind the Offspring as much. But then when you get to the early 2000s and you've got like Blink-182. All right, so I had that record in high school and I actually liked it when I was in high school. But like going back and listening to it now, I'm like, this is so sugary sweet. There's nothing interesting to this.
Yeah, but there is a lot of interesting. When you sit down to play it, there is some. I'm not saying it's difficult, but there is some interesting stuff that they're doing there. That there's pedal tones in there. You wouldn't
if I
expect.
Want to, okay, all right, yeah, no, I get it. Like you can certainly find beauty in anything, and like I'm totally that guy that would say that. But listening to them and like, if I'm going to listen to that shit, I'd rather listen to Cheap Trick. Like, you know what I mean?
I love Cheap Trick.
There's much better alternatives to that music. So for me, I don't think Blink-182.
Cheap Trick's last album was Dream Police. Then it was kind of.
But so Blink-182, like after that band, there's a slew of other ones that are kind of similar. I see some of these get thrown around these gear groups, and you can hate me all you want, but like Thrice, they sound like another like pop punk band to me. There's a lot of bands like that where I've tried to get into it because like all these people are listening to it. I'm like, there must be something redeeming here.
Well, they have that whole revival.
Like, this sounds like shit to me. Like this doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah, there was a whole big revival of punk and I say punk, they call it emo.
Punk. Yeah,
remember emo?
That's not punk though.
Chevelle
whiny little bitch music. That's what that is. So that's another whole genre that you could just fucking forget about talking to me about because emo does nothing for me. Like
what I couldn't stand
I'd rather stand on a bed of nails than listen to emo.
There was nothing interesting musically going on with that stuff. I'm one of those people. I look for stuff that's interesting.
Do you know what? You know what I've noticed, Jim? Emo is really popular with the same people who say that lyrics are more important than the melody or melodic content of a song.
Definitely.
And that's why I'm like, you've completely missed the point. If I wanted to fucking read poetry, like I'd go read poetry. That's
right.
You know what I mean? Like I just don't understand it. So, and then there's been some bands post that stuff that I don't really care for much either. I mean, the one that comes to mind, and I know they're not really fitting in any of these genres, is like Black Veil Brides. And it seems like there's like a whole bunch of bands like surrounding that whole thing that were kind of descended from that screamo emo thing. It's like when you talk about screamo, it's like make up your mind. Are you hardcore? Are you like what the hell is this? I don't even know what to do with this anymore. So we had this whole movement in modern music, the postmodern thing where it's like, well, we'll just take two genres and we'll mash them up and then that's how we'll make a new song. And it's like, at some point, I'm just sitting there going, dude, some genres don't need to be mixed. If you say like let's say bands like Yellow Card or whatever, these emo bands,
right? Yeah, Yellow Card
end up being oh good, there's an original band. End up being like, okay, so we're gonna take our music and we're gonna meld it with hardcore music, and that's how we're gonna get screamo, or like if that's really the
emo screamo,
if that's the child of like Henry Rollins' band Black Flag, with pop punk, if that's what comes out of it, like forget it. They should have forked a long time ago and just stay the hell away from each other. It's like a divorce nobody wants them to get them back together with, Yeah.
Yeah. The Ataris was another one of those.
Yeah.
It was like, what the fuck is going on here?
Alkaline Trio is another one, I think, from that. And now I'm going to be sounding really bad because I know I'm messing up genres and like I know there's all these subgenres and this stuff too.
Yeah, I don't.
It's just like when I talk about metal, but I mean, like you have to understand, I grew up in this. Like, this was what was going on when I was in high school. And you totally had these new metal kids versus the punk kids, and and even I would say like the progressive new metal kids who were
emo
basically the Tool
goth
fans. The Tool fans versus the Blink 182 kids, and over in the other corner you had the Chevelle Yellow Card fans. It was a whole weird thing.
Well, you had Smashing Pumpkins, you had Perfect Circle, had
when I was younger. So I actually came up and the music that formed a lot of my tastes were things like Smashing Pumpkins, because I was, so to put it in perspective, I would have started high school in 99. So running up to 99 was basically all the bands that formed my my musical taste. So like Soundgarden and all those bands were happening right before high school for me. So,
I retired in January of 1999.
I know. So yes, that if you're following along, that makes me class of 2003, folks. That makes you feel bad, doesn't it, Jim?
Good Lord.
And then remember, I'm 33 now, so
I know. I could easily have had a child your age. Easily.
Yeah, yes.
That's insane. But my oldest is 24, by the way. So
you're a Navy guy, maybe you did.
And I was in my 30s when she was born. So my boys came when I was pushing mid 40s or mid 30s. So anyway, when we talk about this kind of stuff, the thing that we're getting at as practical guitarists, obviously, is so chime in, folks. Tell us what you think.
Yeah, absolutely. I know not really everybody agrees with me.
Yeah, we really want to hear your input. Is this something where you're like, oh, you guys are morons, you're wrong? Or is it something where you say, hey, you know what? I kind of agree with you or whatever. Or this is your other thing. Because the truth is that there are so many people out there who don't have, they only listen to one type of music.
Yep.
So for our next, one of the things that I want to talk about soon is we're going to talk about shred. In our next episode, we're going to be talking about shred, and we'll talk about some genres. And shred, what does it mean to shred? Because you hear shred.
You read my article I sent you.
Yeah. I mean, what are some of the things that you guys?
There will be a companion article published with the next episode.
Yeah. So if you guys are interested, one of the things that I want to ask everybody though is Red Hot Chili Peppers. I'm just going to leave it at that. Red Hot Chili Peppers. What do you think?
Can we clarify like what era?
Well, that's what I'm saying. There are three eras, right? There's the Frusciante era, and then there's the post-Frusciante era, and now there was the what's his name?
Actually, 4 eras.
Yeah, 4 now. Yeah, you're right. Because there are 2 post-Frusciante.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't think really the guitar player really defines that band. But that's the whole thing for the group. Let's talk about the group.
That's something to ask the group. Because I've been seeing lately where a lot of guitar players saying, like, oh, yeah, my guitar playing came from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I'm like, really?
I just like the fact that Frusciante used Marshall major heads. So,
yep.
That nothing says I love you like 200 watts of tube power. All right. We've been the Practical Guitarists, and I've been David.
I've been Jim.
And I did it backwards. So good night.
Good night.